Hello and welcome to Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy,
And I'm Claire.
and we're here to talk about some of the disturbing things that go on in the world, past and present. We feel like not knowing doesn't mean the crazy doesn't exist.
So we're going to scar you with the knowing.
Enjoy. So, what do you got for us today, Claire?
Today we're going to step into a few areas, so we're just going to see which one you're going to guess the place of this, where this feller's from instead.
That means we've either been there a lot and you're going to try to trick me, or we haven't been there at all, and that's why you're using that.
It's the largest producer of sweet potatoes in the country.
Idaho? No?
It's a part of... Oh, never mind, scratch that. Emerald and other rare gems can be found here.
This sounds familiar.
It's the home of airborne and special operations.
Georgia?
It's the Tar Heel state.
Wait, isn't it North Carolina where they do the airborne?
You know what? I think I ruined all my hints because I thought the Tar Heel state is the Carolinas. Hold on! Oh, okay. No, you were right with the Carolinas. North Carolina.
Okay. Were you right with your hints?
Well, you threw me off because we're going to Idaho, and I was just like, I just want to double check.
Well, that's your fault.
We did where he's from. He's from North Carolina, so that's why I was doing my guesses. But when you said Idaho, it literally threw me off. But we're going to Idaho. He's from North Carolina. We're stepping into a bunch of different steps. But way to mess with me with your first guess, because I was about to be like, you're right. And then I was like, Idaho isn't the leading producer of sweet potatoes, though. Different kind of potato.
Well, that's the only one I could think of. And then the airborne, I thought of your husband. And then I realized, no, wait, that is not there. Anyway.
Well, you messed with my brain, ho.
You messed with mine too.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure I did a North Carolina one and had the gems.
The emeralds.
Yeah, and them taters, which is why I was like, this seems familiar.
So we're going to talk about Joseph Edward Duncan III. You ever heard of him?
I don't think so.
And I'm not going to try to trick you on this one. This feller is our piece of shit. You can hate him all you like. So,
done.
If there's not going to be a twist that he's our victim, he's a piece of garbage. And again, you're not going to like him at any junction of today's discussion. So, no trickery on this one.
All right.
And I'm not saying that to double trick you.
Yeah, sitting here dirty-eyed like, I don't know, this seems pretty trickery.
No. I want you to have a seething hate for him because it's well planted. And so
he must do something extra vile. Does this involve children? Because that's going to make me...
We're getting wildly off track. So I'm going to start at a place you absolutely don't want to associate with trauma.
Children.
Denny's.
Oh.
It's late night in Coeur d'Alene. It's late night in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho. It's July 2nd, 2005. You've got the typical what you'd expect of a Denny's. You've got families, tired waitresses, people just trying to eat pancakes and mind their own business. When in walks an 8-year-old girl with a man who looks off. Not tattooed face, obvious villain, wrong. Just that quiet something in your stomach says, no, this isn't right. The little girl's name is Shasta. She's been missing last 47 days. She's sitting across from the man who butchered her family and took her and her brother into the woods to torture them. And here they are, casually ordering food like this is a normal uncle-niece breakfast run. One of the servers happens to recognize Shasta from the news. Imagine that. You go to clear a table and realize that the kid in your section is literally the face on all the missing posters. So she quietly goes to her manager and they call the cops. Officers roll up to Denny's, they walk in, they see the girl, they see the man she's with, 42-year-old registered sex offender named Joseph Edward Duncan III. And they put an end to what he thought was his fun little road trip. And that's the case. Okay, so now that I've ruined late night diners for you, let's rewind. Because Shasta didn't just appear at Denny's out of nowhere. So we have to go back to a little house, the Grown family home in May 2005. It's one of those places that looks like normal, messy, real life, not a crime scene waiting to happen. In that house, you've got Brenda, early 40s, single mom energy, turned up to 11. She's juggling kids, a relationship, all the chaos that comes with blending a family and trying to keep everyone functioning. She's got 3 kids, Slade, who's the oldest and a teenager, Dylan, who's 9, and Shasta, who's 8. And then she's got her boyfriend, Mark McKenzie, He's around. He's a real steady adult presence. The guy that's fixing stuff, helping with the kids, doing normal life kind of things. It might not be a perfect TV family, but it's real. They're just trying to exist in a quiet spot near the lake.
Sounds like a nice feller.
Mhm. Neighbors will see the kids out in the yard, riding bikes, playing. Shasta and Dylan, especially since they're the younger two, they're the classic kid combo, annoying each other one minute, best friends the next. You know what that looks like.
I sure do.
So, who's the guy sitting with Shasta at Denny's? The Joseph feller. And how does he come to have Shasta? Well, by the time Joseph walks into the family's lives, he has decades of offenses against children behind him. We're talking about sexual assault starting as a teenager, escalating into armed abductions, and a prison sentence that should have kept him away from kids forever, but surprise, the system said, what if we just don't keep him in jail and just let him out?
We're gonna have him back after he's ruined some other lives.
As a teenager, he was already committing violent sexual assaults on younger boys.
Oh,
At 15, he rapes a 9-year-old boy at
yeah.
gunpoint.
Oh.
At around 16, 17, he tells a therapist he's tied up and assaulted multiple other boys. By 1980, he gets nailed for abducting and raping a 14-year-old boy with a gun and gets a 20-year sentence. Fantastic, right? Should be locked up.
But he won't.
Lose the key. Except he spends a lot of his adulthood being let out on parole, violating things, and going right back to hunting kids over and over. At one point, he ends up in Washington state, paroled, supposedly monitored, but while he's out, he's believed to have murdered a 10-year-old boy named Anthony Martinez in California, and maybe 2 girls in Seattle. That's on top of all the other known assaults that he's done. This man is not a one-off offender. He's a walking red flag that someone folded into an origami swan and pretended everything was just fine, all the while continually allowing him to re-enter the public.
That was a mouthful.
Uh-huh.
Did a good job. You read it real good, and he's a real piece of trash.
Uh-huh.
I think that there needs to be some sort of like condition where if it involves kids, first of all, I don't think they should be given a second chance, but also if they get paroled, the idiots that all sign up to be like, oh, we should let him out, they should be held liable if he reoffends because he shouldn't be let out in the first place. And maybe if the parole board people had like, I'm not saying throw their asses in jail, but maybe if there was a monetary or something that like made them think twice, like here, let him babysit your family member. If your response to that would be heck no, then keep his butt behind bars.
Yeah. I don't understand how raping a child at gunpoint,
Multiple times?
right, that you'd ever be allowed out. The only thing that I could figure, and I didn't delve into it because I have hardly even gotten into this case, but I didn't delve into it because I assumed they were doing the whole he's young and troubled, we can still save him, rather than facing the reality of throwing away a very young person at the risk of everyone else.
Okay, that makes sense when he was a young teenager doing that. Sure. But the second he hit 19 and reoffended,
Yeah,
throw away the key.
I agree. But we're going to jump ahead to 2004. Joseph is charged with molesting 2 boys on a playground because apparently he just simply cannot be anywhere near children without being a monster.
You think?
He gets released on bond while that's pending, and instead of thinking about his life choices, he decides he's going to double down. He's going to go out in a blaze of horror. In his blog, yes, he kept a blog, he writes that his plan is basically to kidnap, rape, and murder as many children as he can before he gets caught. That's his mindset, and that's how deliberate this story is.
Ew.
And that's also the guy who spots little Shasta and Dylan near their home in May 2005. He sees 2 kids just doing their thing, a house that looks a little isolated, and in his head, this isn't a family, it's an opportunity. So he starts planning. On May 15th, 16th, Joseph breaks into the family home late at night while everyone's sleeping. He walks around the house. He watches them for weeks, noting routines until June 21st, when it's just like any other night in the home, quiet from the outside, inside, normal end of day stuff, kids asleep, adults winding down. Somewhere in the dark, Joseph is sneaking around outside, masked and armed, ready to make this house his personal horror set. He breaks in with a gun and a hammer. Brenda wakes up Dylan and Shasta, telling them that someone's in the house. They all go into the living room where Joseph is waiting, wearing black gloves and armed with his gun. He subdues the adults and the older brother by binding them with nylon zip ties. Then he takes Shasta and Dylan outside and puts them on the lawn, goes back inside. Over the next stretch of time, he beats Brenda, Mark, and Slade to death with a hammer.
Oh,
There's this detail that'll haunt you. Shasta will talk about hearing thumping sounds from inside the house while she and Dylan are outside.
that's so sad.
Mm-hmm.
Those poor babies. Why didn't they run?
I don't know, other than it's dark out, and I figure,
They're little.
yeah, that you don't want to, like, where are you going to run to?
Yeah.
You don't really have close neighbors, so I would imagine it would be scary to just run into the dark.
And maybe he said something like, if you run away, I'm going to kill your family.
I mean, clearly the guys had practice luring children, so I feel like something about him, he knows how, whatever trickery he does. So I think it's like a frozen in fear little kid thing of, unfortunately, in this instance, the woods would have been far less scarier.
Yeah. Poor babies.
Mm-hmm. At some point, Shasta's older brother Slade staggers towards the door, injured, trying to move, but he doesn't make it. Joseph finishes the job, leaving 3 bodies behind. It wouldn't be until June 23rd when a wellness check is conducted and that horrible scene is discovered. Police walk into a house where 3 people have been bludgeoned to death and 2 kids, Shasta and Dylan, are missing. So now it's not just a triple homicide, it's an Amber Alert nightmare. The community goes into full-fledged panic and prayer mode. They've got this house with 3 bodies and 2 missing children, vigils, posters, people on TV begging for their safe return. Folks in that area are not used to this level of nightmare. They're thinking maybe it's a custody thing, maybe the kids are alive somewhere. No one is imagining the scenario unfolding in some campsites not far off. Meanwhile, Joseph is traveling, getting money wired to him by people who knew him and supposedly didn't know what he was doing. He keeps up this double life on the run, while the entire region is looking at every white van and creepy guy in a store thinking, is that him?
Those poor babies.
Yeah. So they travel a long distance, and Joseph takes them to remote campsites for the next 6 to 7 weeks. He repeatedly rapes and tortures them, especially focusing on Dylan, while also telling Shasta what he did to her family. So this 8-year-old is not only being abused, she's being forced to carry the story of how her family was murdered around in her head.
Poor babies. So young.
So Joseph moves between at least 2 different campsites and remote areas, away from people, away from any help the kids could have sought out. He plays this twisted game where sometimes he acts like the nice captor, giving them food or letting them play, and then switches into full torture mode. At one point, he's recording some of what he does to Dylan, that jurors will later see videos of him hanging Dylan, letting him struggle for air, only to let him go and then do it again. Eventually, he does kill Dylan. Shasta will tell investigators that she heard a boom and was on the other side of the car when she heard it. So she runs around to see what happened, and Dylan's laying on the ground screaming. Joseph had kept a shotgun on a clear plastic box and had been looking for his beer when it went off, hitting Dylan in the stomach.
Sure.
Then Joseph takes the shotgun, puts it to Dylan's head, and it doesn't fire. He reloads it, puts it back to his head, all while Dylan is crying for him not to kill him. He pulls the trigger anyway. Joseph breaks down into tears about how he had to in order to put him out of his misery.
He's so disgusting.
A few days later, Joseph would ask Shasta, would she rather be strangled or be killed with the gun? Shasta didn't want to be shot, so Joseph would take a rope and put it around her neck and pull it really tight. This poor little thing starts to gasp for air and manages to get out a plea for him to stop, using his preferred nickname, Jet. He does stop, then asks her if she wants to go meet his mom.
What?
And Shasta would say yes. So they would reload into the car, stopping at Denny's on the way. Now we're back to where we started.
I was about to go on a tangent about if that mother met that little girl.
I would hope that if he showed up to his mother's house with a little girl, she would 100% intervene.
I mean, if she didn't, I would for sure say that, she deserves behind bars. And whatever he did to those kids, she would deserve the same sentence.
Mm-hmm. So, like I said, we're now back to where we started, July 2nd, 2005. Joseph sitting there eating with Shasta. When staff recognize her, call 911, cops show up, and then Shasta is rescued right there in the middle of a diner. Now, when officers take Joseph into custody, everything starts to unravel. They realize this is not just a kidnapper, not just a random perpetrator. This is a longtime child molester with violent records stretching back to the 70s.
Yeah, well, whatever. Everybody in their outrage can suck it.
Mm-hmm. See, I'm glad you're upset too, because it just... I thought
Upset? I'm not upset. Not at all.
Dylan's body would be found 2 days after Shasta is rescued on July 4th at a campsite in Montana near a remote road where Joseph had left him, shot at point blank range with a sawed off shotgun. Now, with Joseph in custody, investigators start really digging into his past, like, what else could we have missed? And the answer is a fucking shitload. While he's already facing the murder / kidnapping case in Idaho and federal court, they connect him to the 1997 kidnapping and murder of 10-year-old Anthony Martinez in California. Now, with Anthony, he had been playing in his front yard with his friends on April 4th, 1997, when a man wandered up looking for his missing cat and wanted them to help look for him. And the group of boys is like, no. That's when he gets close enough, grabs Anthony, and holds a knife to him, and then drags him into his vehicle. 2 weeks later, his body would be found partially clothed and decomposing. He'd been sexually assaulted and bound with duct tape. The boys who saw the man described him and did a composite, but nothing ever comes of that. They do manage to salvage a partial fingerprint off the duct tape, but the case goes cold until Shasta walks into that diner and it becomes national news. It's actually at that point when it's like, again, national news that a little girl's found, that bloggers put the similarities together from Anthony's cold case and Shasta's kidnapper looking mighty similar, and that's when the FBI gets involved. And by August 3rd, 2005, they matched that partial fingerprint to the piece of shit in custody, and Joseph wouldn't deny it. He even said that it was revenge against society for sending him back to jail for a probation violation.
Here's a thought. Don't violate your probation, you piece of trash.
He's also connected to murdering 2 girls in Washington in the mid-90s, so now you're looking at a serial child killer who's been slipping through the cracks for years. Now, the 2 little girls were 11-year-old Sammy Jo White and her half-sister Carmen, who was 9. They had both disappeared July 6th, 1996, and their remains wouldn't be found until February of 98. Joseph would confess to beating the girls to death. Now, in Idaho State Court, Joseph is charged with 3 counts of first-degree murder and 3 counts of first-degree kidnapping for Brenda, Slade, and Mark. But they decide to defer the kidnapping charges on Dylan and Shasta to federal court since he took them outside of the state for sexual exploitation, and it makes it a federal crime. Joseph does plead guilty to kidnapping in order to get 3 consecutive life sentences without parole in October of 2006. Now, they do leave the murder charges pending because the judge tells him that if he doesn't get the death penalty when he goes to federal court, they're going to bring his ass right back because he promises Idaho will give him the death penalty.
I like that judge.
I did too. I was like, if I could hug him. I was like,
he's my favorite. He should run for president.
Mm-hmm. So off to federal court he goes in January 2007 to 2016. This is the chunk of back and forth court nonsense because nothing ever happens quickly. He's tried for kidnapping Shasta and Dylan, aggravated sexual abuse, exploitation of children resulting in death, blah, 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 illegal firearm possession, theft of a vehicle. Collectively, 10 charges, but a whole bunch of nonsense and postponements will lead to a trial date in 2008. But there'll be more delays, and he ends up pleading guilty before that trial date, so it's like December 2007. And fortunately, it would spare Shasta from having to testify. Now, during sentencing, it's possibly the only kindness he did.
Yeah.
But during sentencing, Joseph actually dismisses his lawyer and says he can do it himself. and courts are gonna rule that he's competent to do so, but the jury is gonna recommend the death penalty. So apparently he's not too good at doing it himself, and he does receive 3 federal death sentences related to Dylan's death, plus 3 consecutive life sentences without parole for kidnapping and sexually abusing Shasta. Although Joseph is going to claim he didn't want to file any appeals, they were filed against his wishes. The courts will repeatedly rule that he's mentally competent, and it's just a weird back and forth. That's why it's like, and it takes so. I cannot stand the justice system mumbo jumbo. It's not swift. It takes forever.
Well, as long as he's actually behind bars through it all, they can take as long as they'd like.
Fine.
Because it seems like every time they finish something with him, they turn around and let his ass back out.
Well, I'm not gonna lie, part of me cringed at the idea of they let him defend himself, because I did the whole, if this ends up being hung up on an appeal, I'm gonna be real
For
pissed.
inadequate counsel.
Yeah. They should have let him do it. They should have been like, it's a death penalty potential, so you're gonna sit yourself down. You're not a lawyer. But he remains on federal death row in Indiana during all the back and forth. And a little bit about Shasta, why he's cooling his heels in jail. She does survive, but survives is doing a whole lot of work there because she has to live with being the kid everyone recognizes. She has to relive all the court crap, or she has to relive it all in court of what happened to her. What happened to her brother in order to help get justice. So it's just like, for however long this is drawn out, I'd like to hope that whoever had custody of her during all of this was keeping it from her rather than like going back and forth to court just in case kind of things, because it's almost 10 years of that.
I'm without words.
Well, it's really disgusting. I understand she has a whole, like, her testimony, her being a witness weighs a whole lot, but at the same time,
It's dragging her being able to heal out.
right. However long this takes is like not getting closure. It's just like constantly like fucking with an open wound here. And it's just like, at what point does it become the justice system isn't really doing anything to protect victims further from being victims? And I don't feel like this was justice at all. We're just dragging shit out.
Yeah.
But she does go on to talk about her trauma, her healing, the fact that her life didn't freeze at age 8, even though the worst thing that could have happened to her basically did. She becomes this symbol of survival and a reminder of how completely the system failed to stop Joseph earlier in his life. Now, in regards to his other crimes, in California, they would charge Joseph with the 1997 of Anthony Martinez. After extradition, he pleads guilty in 2011 and receives 2 life sentences without parole, as the family preferred closure over pursuing another death penalty case.
Yeah, that makes sense. He's already going to die, so.
Yeah. All the while, when Joseph's in jail, he's maintaining his blog, by the way.
It's disgusting.
Claiming innocence or justification of his life choices and actions, which also fucking disgusting. And no, I didn't try to read any of it because I hope it's not on the internet anymore, and I don't want to hear anybody's justification on being a fucking disgusting pedophile.
Yeah.
Prison officials will say that inmates do not have internet access, but they can't control over what somebody else will post for on his behalf.
Oh, that's disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
So much for people not knowing what he was doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can tell you right now that if I found out that anyone I was related to or friends with did even a quarter of the things that this piece of garbage did, I definitely
Kill him
not be.
yourself.
Well, yes, that, and I wouldn't continue talking to them and doing them favors.
Oh, I thought it was real. How disgusting do you have to feel to find out he was doing all that and you were sending this piece of shit money?
I mean, you kind of get what you get when you know that he's been arrested multiple times for the shit.
Well, I would think that some of the adults were probably like, maybe they're people he ran into. I don't know how they know him, but I would hope that they don't really know what he's been in jail for.
I wouldn't be sending somebody money that I don't really know.
Well, I'm not saying they don't know him. I'm just saying maybe they don't know what he was in jail for. I mean, people lie real good, and unless you're looking up sex offenders near you,
Which I do.
and he's not doing the rule following. So like when he was on parole and he's not supposed to be in Washington, like that level of you wouldn't know because he wouldn't be reported as being near you, you know?
Well, whoever was supposed to be keeping an eye on him should get in trouble too.
Which time?
All of them.
Well, jurors are going to be offered counseling due to the disturbing evidence that they had to peruse through, and I feel bad for anybody who has to watch videos against children. Like, I get why it's necessary to see the evidence, but ugh.
Yeah, you made me Google it, and not the video, but
I was going to say, it's right up there with the toy box killers and how they would record the screams of their torture victims. I feel bad for anybody who has to be a juror on a trial where that it's just horrible things. Well, in 2016, Shasta launches a Slade and Dillon's law advocating for stricter sentencing of violent sex offenders. The petition gained over 50,000 supporters.
what's the Shasta thing?
Stricter sentencing for violent sex offenders, because that's part of, you figure, why he kept getting out is like whatever sentencing, it's whatever loophole, and he ends up getting back out. And I don't think if
Ew. You just
but
made me Google it. Did you know that we used to have a 3-strike rule for violent sex offenders? And Shasta's rule or Shasta's law is it reduces it from 3 strikes to 1 strike.
it's disgusting.
3 strikes?
Like, oh, in case you accidentally drop your penis into a small child 3 times, I mean, you get to go back out again.
Oh, and she named the petition Slade and
Slade
Dillon's
and
law.
Dillon's. You weren't
Aw.
listening. You were too busy Googling because I told you that. And you called it Shasta Law.
Well, yeah, I was having a brain
She
thought.
launched it and named it after her brothers.
That's so sad.
But Joseph remained on federal death row until in 2020 he was diagnosed with a glioblastoma. He declined treatment and died March 28th, 2021 at age 58. His death occurred, obviously, before execution was carried out, so this man, who bragged about wanting to kill as many children as possible, ended up dying in a bed, supervised and medicated, which is way more mercy than he ever showed any of his victims.
I'm surprised that he didn't try to file any sort of appeal, because if he had a brain tumor growing and it can change your personality and stuff like that, I'm surprised they didn't try to pull that nonsense.
Well, I feel like at that point they told him he doesn't have long to live, and he didn't without treatment. So it's unfortunate that I hate when they get to skirt out of their punishment.
Yeah. Ew.
But if there's any tiny piece of light in this whole thing, it's that Shasta survived, told the truth, and refused to let him define the rest of her life.
And she got it from 3 strikes to 1.
Mm-hmm. And a special thanks to the server who noticed, and because if that's not a perfect example of the whole see something, say something at work, I don't know what is. But I'm also glad that the cops reacted fast and got him, because how unfortunate would that have been if they missed him?
Yeah. And when she spotted Shasta, the server didn't start acting weird and make him flee.
Yeah. Well, because then it was the other thing of, what if somebody did like a, no, it couldn't be kind of thing?
Yeah. Well, then hopefully his mother would, if he was actually taking her there, would have done something. Which you made me also, the video that the jurors had to watch was 33 minutes of him torturing and physically and verbally assaulting and sexually abusing Dylan. And in it, Duncan shouted, "The devil is here, boy. The devil himself. The devil likes to watch children suffer and cry." I don't know why you're laughing. It's fucking disgusting.
Because you always give them a southern twang. And that ain't right.
I can't do anything else.
I know.
My only other go-to would be to plug my nose and say, "The devil is here, boy." Ew, did you know what the name of his blog was?
The Fifth Nail.
He's really vile.
He is.
And if they passed the Slade and Dillon's law in 2016, can you please explain to me why
we made it to the 2000s with a 3-strike policy on kitty diddling?
There's still multiple cases we've done since 2016 where violent sex offenders still have gotten out on parole.
They were grandfathered in. I don't understand it unless there are way more pedophiles out there than we realize that are just unregistered and not caught.
Gary.
They have entered the justice system.
My children hate that we do the podcast because I don't let them out of my sight ever.
Well, like you had said before, one of your statistics of like it takes what 10 seconds.
Grab somebody.
And no offense to your security cameras, you really can't tell details, so it wouldn't be helpful other than a pinpointing a time and vague description of a vehicle.
Yeah.
If they were caught by a camera. But it's scary. I also thought it was super creepy that he broke into their house while they were sleeping and just wandered around and got a lay of the house.
Yeah, that's terrifying.
Like, just to know he was in the house, watched them sleep.
Multiple times, yes. Stalked them. He stalked his prey.
I mean, I guess the silver lining would be that because he invested so much time in tracking down what their routine was and just observing the children playing and probably spanking it in whatever stolen vehicle, which I would not want back. But that he was like, if he wouldn't have stalked as long as he did, he could have easily killed them, raped them, murdered everyone in the family that night, and then gone prowling somewhere else.
Did he rape Shasta or just Dylan? Because I'm not trying to say nothing, but he seemed to prefer the boys. Okay, I don't know how to word this correctly, so I hope nobody gets offended, but I don't understand why he didn't kill her since he seemed to enjoy the boys more. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, I don't think I could ever wrap my head around what he was thinking, but that doesn't make sense to me.
So she was also raped by him. He just preferred her brother.
But that's what I mean is I don't understand since he had a history of really liking the boys, why he kept her.
So
I mean, I guess he was planning to kill her also, but
he would tell the police that killing Dylan was an accident. Like, he didn't mean to. However, when Shasta's just like, yeah, he might have accidentally shot him, but he intended to kill him, as he said to her that to put him out of his misery. But he was over there looking for more beer, and I guess when he moved the gun, he accidentally shot him in the stomach. But instead of trying to, like, he could have dropped his ass off literally anywhere to try to render aid, but instead, he put the barrel to hit the poor boy's head and shot him. So the first one might have been an accident. The second one was not.
yeah.
Which is, again, why her testimony is as important as it is, because without that, it's just like, it was an accident. Partially. I feel like he probably could have survived his injuries if not to say he couldn't bleed out, or I don't know what all the wound was that was accidental, but I would think if he's holding his gut and pleading for somebody not to kill him, that he's hanging on enough. We'll never know.
All those poor kids.
Mm-hmm.
Those poor babies.
But you figure there's like a long line of victims from him.
Well, it's disturbing also because you can't even say it's one state.
No, it's all of them.
Well, like, it's not even just one state that kept giving him chance after chance. It's so many. I don't understand how they can slip through the cracks like that. This breaks my heart. It makes me want to cry. I don't like your case.
I knew you weren't gonna. And honestly, the more I worked on it, I was just like, this is so disgusting. Like, how?
That's really sad.
But that's why I didn't want it to be I don't want you to get confused. I'm not trying to paint this in any other way than it is, because he is a piece of shit every step of the way. And I don't give two shits. I'm not saying he was, but I'm not saying he wasn't molested or how he became the victim maker that he did. But, like, I don't give a shit.
Mm-mm.
Clearly there was something rotten in his brain hole from birth, and that was an abortion that should have happened. Said what I said. Come at me, YouTubers.
Sounds like they just did.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That was fast.
That was rather instant.
We haven't even posted this yet.
Okay. That's all I got.
I'm not thanking you for that, because I don't thank you at all.
No. But I feel like if you take anything from this case, it's trust no one and trust your gut.
You can't say...
Trust yourself.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And don't let your kids out of your sight. Even in your front yard.
I feel like, oh, you some bitches should already know that. You're supposed to be watching them.
It's 5 o'clock. Do you know where your children are?
AM or PM?
All of them. Or both, I guess.
All of the 5 o'clocks.
I was thinking all of the children, but...
Oh. Yeah.
Then I realized we were talking about the o'clocks.
I think you need a nap.
My heart is broken for all those kids, and he's such scum. And I have to go get my boy off the bus in 30 minutes, and I'm going to squeeze him, and he's not going to know why.
Well, just be vigilant with your watching. Keep tabs on if the same vehicle is always behind the bus.
Oh, that's horrifying too.
It should be, but I'm just saying.
Unless it's your neighbor conveniently always going home at the same time.
Well, it's not convenient for them. Pedophiles baiting off to the kids getting off the bus.
Keep your dick beaters on the steering wheel.
Anyway, pay attention to your surroundings, because you too could save a small child from a pervert abductor at Denny's.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode of Homicide Hobbies. If we made you laugh, if we made you cry, or if we mindfucked you for the day, then we thank you for listening. Please write a review on whatever you're listening to us on. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your coworkers. We're freaking awesome. And join us next week for another episode of Homicide Hobbies. I'm Andy.
And I'm Claire.
That's all we've got.